should the government, since they already like most states accept trans like surgery and shit like that, and then posing as whatever they want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do the same for furries? They when they want to be animal, just relinquish their human rights doing
So,
so.
so
Okay.
Sunny KYKA is actually presenting an interesting argument here. So what he's saying is, if we are affirming the identities, if the federal government and the government to an extent is affirming the identities of trans people to the gender they want to conform to, why shouldn't the federal government and other governments, what is the word I used? Affirm the identity of these furries to dogs or wolves or whatever the fuck they want to be.
Okay, so there's a couple of problems with this. One, being a furry, and I know I'm gonna get an argument out of this one. Being a furry is not a mental illness.
How's not mental illness?
It's not a mental illness because two.
What if you believe you're a furry?
Do not actually believe that they are the animals of the characters and the personas that they create.
Then why do they act like so? Like furries will fucking bark if they're
I don't
dogs,
fucking
or
know.
fucking dragons.
I don't fucking know. But
because in their head, obviously subconsciously, they think they are their.
But they don't though. That's the funny part. They don't. And you want to know how I know they don't? Because thinking that you are an animal or that you are an animal trapped inside a human body, that's a different thing. It's not called furry, it's called otherkin. I mean, it's also called some other. It's also called some other fucking thing. It's like, I think there's like, it's like Therakin or something. I don't know. The labels are constantly changing.
Why
it's called. It's called. Why do you think? Anyways,
you don't need to answer. Chao.
So furries do not actually believe, in their heart of hearts, that they are the animals that they dress up as and perform as. At conventions and online and whatever. It is a hobby. It is a strange hobby. And I don't actually entirely know the inner workings of how it mechanizes. But if they believed they were the animals that they said that they are, they would be otherkins, not furries. Furthermore, I think it is a lot more reasonable, at least in theory, for somebody to transition genders between one of the two gender states that we've established that they exist, whereas in comparison, there is no such thing as being a different species of human. There was one species. This goes back into the transracial argument, which we should bring up on another podcast, because it definitely does seem to be a growing movement, especially on sites like TikTok. But the fundamental fact is, we are all human, and you cannot be anything other than human. If you are a male, there's males, there's females. If you want to be the other one, that is a lot more within grasp, especially with our current level of technology, than switching species. We literally don't have the technology for that yet. We are not advanced enough. And even if we were, the fact of the matter is this: humans are the only animal on Earth that have sapience. Not sentience, sapience. We are self-aware. We are not only thinking, but we are feeling. We experience. We know we can experience. We have language. We have critical thinking skills. We are aware of our surroundings and ourselves. And we can experience the world for lack of better words, in the truest way that we can prove in comparison to every other animal and every other life form on this planet. And until aliens come, it'll stay that way. So, if a human was otherkin, not furry, and wanted to become an animal, right, we would still give them human rights, even if we were technologically capable of turning them into that animal, as long as they did not lose their sapience, which they obviously wouldn't, because then that would just be murder. And I don't think otherkins are that mentally ill to kill themselves to be the animals that they want to be. So they would still be sentient, they would still be sapient, and they would still be deserving of basic human rights.
did this turn into a human rights thing? Listen,
That's what was saying, or that's what Sunny was saying.
listen. I think the argument is interesting because we must understand something in this, I would say, debate. Trans people obviously are experiencing some sort of mental illness.
Gender
I think we-
dysphoria.
Gender dysphoria, which is a mental illness. We all agree.
Right. Yes.
The interesting thing to point out is, yes, I do believe, and this is just me being completely honest, fuck all the, fuck me joking about the gay thing last debate, the last topic, because we obviously know that was just for jokes. This is me
I
being
don't. I
serious.
don't know if Sunny was joking, but fine.
Listen to me for a second here.
Mhm.
Some furries obviously don't believe they are dogs. They just like to dress up as a dog or the fur creature, whatever it is,
Yeah.
for sexual pleasure or some type of pleasure. We all understand that.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some furries who actually believe they are the furry they claim to be, and they wish to identify as that. And the interesting paradigm Sunny is bringing into this debate is that why doesn't the federal government affirm their identity?
Okay. Again, first of all, it is a significant minority of the furry population that actually believes they are
Sure.
the animals that they're talking about. It's like we're talking 1% of the 1% of people that are furries. So we are already getting incredibly esoteric in the amount of people that this kind of affirmation would actually be helping.
Sure. I mean, I don't think affirmation of mental illness actually helps anyone, but
I think
point he is
that gender
making-
dysphoria doesn't really have a lot of fixes. And the only fix really that has been proven to help at all for adults is gender affirmation. If the trans person so seeks it voluntarily.
I think there is some issue with that. Mainly with the fact that there's been an influx of trans people. And I'm not including children because obviously there's an influx of them.
Yeah.
And I don't consider those to be legitimate cases, but
They're
I'm
not.
talking about adults.
Yeah.
There's been an influx of adults.
Those people are
gonna
trans trenders. And those people, if they actually look into getting gender affirmation surgery, are going to severely fuck up both their physical and mental states permanently. That
Correct.
should ultimately still be their right to do so.
Of course. Right. But I think the interesting point is, even though the furries who believe they are actually furries are 1% of the 1%.
Maybe
Shouldn't
even
they
of
be-
the 1%. It is a very small
Okay,
amount.
imagine it's only 1,000 people in the United States.
Sure.
Very small. Why shouldn't their identity be affirmed?
Okay.
If we affirm the identities of trans people.
That is a fair question. And my answer to it was, one, we are pretty much at the moment technologically incapable to sufficiently do so. And two,
What do you mean by technologically insufficient?
what do you think a transformation in 2023 with our current medical technology would actually look like?
Okay, so you're talking about I'm just trying to understand. You're talking about the transformation
like a surgery,
of,
like a surgery or a treatment, like a medical treatment, because
you're talking about the transformation from a person to the furry persona, right?
Yes.
Now, my question to that is, there is no technological transformation from a male to a female, or for a female to a male. You will always be a male, and you'll always be a female based on what you were born as. We don't have the technology to change your chromosomes.
Right.
We don't have the technology to make you a female if you're a male.
We don't even have the technology to change your bones. The whole
Yes,
1,000
bone
dick
density
site,
is true.
This skeleton was a male. That whole joke. That's why it works. Is because there are many components to transitioning surgery that are just missing because we either don't have the technology or it's not worth the effort and the sunk costs to basically make these many invasive changes to the body with as little technology and expertise as we have in the current field. However, I ultimately do think that is a technology and a science that will evolve over time. And especially if the future turns more transhumanist, we may see more a greater spectrum of body mods capable of simulating, not creating or transforming, but simulating the other gender to help these people with gender dysphoria. I
Correct,
mean,
but
yeah, you are right that, you know, trans people will never be the biological gender that they seek to be. That's just how the world works. However, to treat the mental illness that is gender dysphoria, I I think we still have to try. I mean, if they're seeking it out, that is, you know, ultimately their right to do so, right?
I think Sonny's not actually bringing up that point. I think what Sonny's bringing up is if we are going to affirm these cases of gender dysphoria, and he's not even saying if that's right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's just saying if we are going to do so,
Right.
why shouldn't we do so with the furries?
Well, I mean, maybe that's a good question.
It
Again,
is a good question.
I don't think that there is a whole lot of technology that would allow us to. I can't think of what procedures would work to be effective
Right, but
like this. I guess
are
maybe
there any
like
procedures that would really work with the transgenders?
yes.
I don't. I mean, I think
That's kind of
ultimately
okay.
up to
That
debate,
is
but
debatable, but I think yes. I think it's at least good enough because gender is way more in reach than species in terms of, you know, like biologically. We are already hardwired, you know, from birth to be either male or female, and so switching to the other sexual dimorphic characteristic, while it is as poorly as we can muster with our current medical technology, is a lot closer than species. I mean, again,
true.
what kind of
But isn't
cosmetic
this?
surgery would that even be possible to change somebody into another species?
I'm pretty sure there's a guy who got cosmetic surgery or a woman to look like a some sort of animal.
Well,
He
whatever it
has a
is, it's probably very limited in its capacity
true,
to do so, and
but
it
isn't
probably wouldn't be any more affirming than just constantly wearing a fursuit.
true, but isn't that the same as transgender surgery? Isn't it
No.
all cosmetic?
Well, yes. I mean, inherently, right? I mean, it's not
Right.
entirely cosmetic in that the surgery usually disables the reproductive organs of the person
Right,
getting the
so it's not
surgery.
functional.
It's
It's
actually it's anti-functional. It makes the person
correct. So
sterile.
it's cosmetic.
Yeah, I guess.
But if someone gets surgery to look, and you could warp skin, this is nothing new. If someone gets surgery to warp skin and make them look like a rhino,
Yeah,
you know, that's cosmetic. And
I
the same
guess.
question still applies. If a trans person is being affirmed because they got surgery to look like the opposite gender,
Hmm.
if that same person gets surgery to look like a rhino, why can't they be affirmed as a rhino?
I mean, I think that their ability to get the surgery should probably be unrestricted. As
It should be
retarded,
unrestricted.
yeah, it should be unrestricted. As
But that's not the
retarded as that.
question.
Okay, what's the question? Because apparently
Why?
I'm not understanding.
The question is why can't they be affirmed as a transgender person if we both agree that the surgery in both instances is cosmetic and non-functional.
Yeah.
If we both agree they both have the right to do so,
Yes.
why can't they be affirmed like transgenders?
Hmm. Why? Okay, so I think I'm starting to understand what is asking. Um,
Yeah.
why, if transgenders are being affirmed, not just by the doctors doing the surgery, but by the government and by society at large, then why can't other kin also do the same? I think the fact of the matter is that affirmation policy in the government and in society for accepting transgender people is societal and structural institutionalized by the cathedral, by this decentralized force of woke ideology. And the thing is, I think there are plenty of you know, apolitical people or people even on the right who would respect, you know, a trans person's pronouns and who would treat them as the gender they want to be treated. But that is an imposition by um that ideology fundamentally to normalize transgenderism. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's all just personal choices, right? There's
Correct.
the fact that it be institutionalized on the government level is an ideological choice to be sure, but it really should just be up to individuals who interact with somebody who's transgender to either refer to them as the gender that they want to be treated as or don't, and then whatever consequences of that interaction be may, like maybe a trans person will choose to not associate with anybody who does not affirm their gender identity. And so, in this way, individuals and then corporations and then the government will all work together to just be polite and refer to transgender people as the gender that they want to be, because those transgender people are more worth it as sort of people, as productive members of our society, and that the only thing that they ask is that they be affirmed in this way, and that ultimately that is a choice that many different people are making to actively affirm that gender identity, and they can choose otherwise. We've just kind of forgotten that that's the case because of ideological subversion.
Okay. I think I'll close it off in two ways.
Sure.
Number one, I think the reason why people are hesitant to affirm furries is because rightfully so, it's absurd. Right? The transgender thing, also very absurd. I think you should be allowed to transition into whatever you want to be, whether that be the furry, the different gender,
Yeah.
or fuck, even, I don't even know, a different, like, alien species, whatever. Who cares?
That would kind of fall under the same umbrella as the furry thing, but sure.
Okay, maybe a fictional character.
Yeah.
Of some sort. That's your provocative, that's your choice.
That would definitely be going into Crazy Town, but all of this is, to a certain level, Crazy Town, because we're dealing with mental illnesses here.
I think the point, and I don't want to speak for Sunny, so I'll give him a chance to respond, but I think the point he was trying to make was, the furry thing, and affirming the furries' ideology and what they want to be, is not too far off from the transgender ideology, and if we want to start affirming transgenders, we should be open to the idea of affirming more people. But people aren't open to the idea of affirming more groups because they understand the absurdity of the situation.
Right. That is ultimately a change that will just come with time as
Correct.
more groups are taken into the identity politics sphere of protection.
See, the reason why I put it as a point was actually the opposite. Not to gain more people to affirm more groups of people, is actually the opposite. I actually want him to affirm less people. What I like to do on this podcast is take the most simplest thing but make it radical so that the other side can see how silly it is. And so as you guys thought it was silly to affirm furries, I also think it's very even more silly to affirm like transgender people.
More silly?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
I think it's a debate of relativity at this point.
Fine.
Because, but yeah, I understand Sunny's position very well. I also think I think it's very silly to affirm trans people because I don't think you're doing them any good if you affirm their mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are exceptions. Just like with any rule, there are exceptions to every rule. Even Einstein, to his, well, I'm not going to speak to Einstein because I don't understand it very well. But I'm pretty sure Einstein, when he thought up of the theory of general relativity, he never believed that black holes could exist. But as we all know, there are exceptions to every rule, and black holes probably exist.
They are proven to exist. NASA took a photo of it. And it was a huge thing like last year. But also, in order for black holes to not be a thing, it would have to turn over our entire theory of physics. But fine, whatever.
Maybe I said that wrong, but the point still stands.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just personally disagree. I mean,
That's fine.
I don't disagree with the method. I disagree with the conclusion.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I do think that affirming transgender people to an extent, to a healthy extent, because some of you transgenders are literally just lying to people to gain social power. But
Yeah.
but to the extent that it can be deemed as legitimate on an individual basis, I ultimately do encourage people to use the gender and the pronouns that other people want, if nothing else, just for a practicality reason, because those people are people too, and they hold something valuable like every other person on this earth. And to unlock that, it might involve giving them the courtesy of affirming their mental illness, because ultimately, I do think that it helps, and I am more inclined to trust their own self-diagnoses of what will help them than anybody else's intrusion. That's not to say that anybody else's intrusion is inherently wrong. I'm just saying that I'm more inclined to trust what they say will help them, because the best person to know yourself is yourself. So on that level, it's like, I generally just want to be like polite to people. I don't want to make too many enemies, and as long as they're being reasonable, I think it is a reasonable change to make. However, I obviously refuse to be coerced or forced to say any pronouns or, say any names or, reaffirm anybody's gender. That is a choice that I actively make, and I reserve the right to not make it at any point. But that's just me.
Yep.
Oh my god, we're burning time on this gay debate. Let's move on to the next topic.
Holy shit.
You worry about leaving a better planet for our kids. How about leaving better kids for our planet? Entire generation offended at everything, getting mad that a human thinks all lives matter. We don't need black or white or left or right. What we need is common sense, we need balance. We're all in the same boat. Why you trying to make holes? If they sink, we sink. This is madness.